Hi, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. So nice to see everybody. Wow, what a beautiful, beautiful service. I just want to say thank you so much to Cooper Burgermeister Rabbinical Intern Alana Krivo-Kaufman. Thank you so much for really bringing us to a higher level with your beautiful words and kavanot. And thank you to the cantor and to Joyce for bringing us to an even higher level with that incredible, beautiful music. So thank you. My heart feels incredibly lifted. This week's parsha is Acharei Mot-Kedoshim. It's a double parsha. And there's 7 times in the year where we have the potential to read double parshiot when we're not in a year with a Hebrew leap year. And one of them is this week, Acharei Mot-Kedoshim. And these are 2 somewhat tough parshiot. Acharei Mot focuses on the aftermath of Aaron's son's tragic deaths and also talks about the many types of forbidden relationships. And then Kedoshim gives us rules to live by and not live by. And there is some good stuff in Kedoshim. It talks about showing deference to the elderly, leaving parts of your vineyard and field for the needy. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha is in there. And it also features some of the hardest psukim to read in the Torah, particularly the verse in Leviticus 19 that has been used as ammunition against the LGBTQ community for generations. And I'm struck by these 2 parshiot being placed close together. I wonder if there is something to them being connected. Acharei Mot focusing on death, and Kedoshim focusing on life. The death of Nadav and Avihu by fire is so shocking and traumatizing that it almost forces us to ask, both the text and each other, how do we avoid a life cut short? Not just in length, but in fullness. How do we live well so that when it is our time, we feel it has been time used well? How do we come away from this parsha not fearing death, but exulting in life? And I would like to think that that's what these 2 parshiot are trying to push us towards. Acharei Mot and Kedoshim. There is both death and learning how to live. The Roman philosopher Seneca wrote in his treatise called The Shortness of Life, he said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. We are forced at last by death's final constraint to realize that it has passed away before we knew it was passing. So it is, we are not given a short life, but we make it short, and we are not ill-supplied, but wasteful of it. Life is long if you know how to use it." Life is long if you know how to use it. And I would like to argue that I think that is what Kedoshim, in perhaps its own misguided way, is trying to tell us. To figure out how to use the life we have for those of us who are lucky enough to be granted the time. So let's dive into it. I'm going to try and break Kedoshim up into 3 categories of rules to live by, or sort of general, modes to think about. It starts with Kedoshim Tehiyu. You shall be holy, says God, because I, your God, am holy. God is putting us together. Whatever Kadosh means here, we are bound together by it. There's a midrash that says that this commandment can be compared to a story of 2 people who live far away from each other. One lives in Jerusalem and has a vineyard in the Galilee, and one lives in the Galilee and has a vineyard in Jerusalem. And they each travel a far way to tend to their vineyards. One day they meet up in the middle, and one says to the other, "Instead of you coming to my place and me coming to your place, why don't you keep watch over what is mine in your area, and I will keep overwatch what is yours in my area." And this, the Midrash says, is the meaning of God saying, you are holy because I am holy. We each will watch over something precious of the others. It's not a one-way relationship. We are connected to one another, and seemingly that means something to God, which means, wow, it should mean something to us. The second category I think Kedoshim is trying to talk to us about is relationships. Kedoshim is filled with relationships talk, also Acharei Mot, both, filled with relationship talk. How should we treat one another? How should we love one another? How should we honor one another, make room and space for one another, not humiliate one another? You should not hate your fellow in your heart, says Kedoshim. You should love your neighbor as yourself. You should love the stranger because you were also a stranger. You should not commit adultery. You should not defraud your neighbors, etc., etc. There's a place in Kedoshim, the part that talks about vineyards that I talked about before, that the rabbis connect to the Song of Songs, that great erotic love story of the Jewish people. Now, Kedoshim is clearly no Song of Songs, but I think what it boils down to is God is saying, don't forget about love. That love is what makes the world go round, and it is present in all manner of relationships. And finally, for the third category, I would like to invoke my favorite Hasidic commentator, who also separates Kedoshim into three categories. The Rabbi of Dinov, Rabbi Naftali Tzvi Hirsch, says, Kedoshim is about the three types, or the three crowns, is actually what he calls them, the three crowns of holiness that are given to God every morning by the ministering angels. And every morning, God keeps one crown of holiness for God's self and gives the other two crowns to us. What are these three crowns of holiness? Rabbi Naftali Tzvi says they are Chochmah, Bina, and Da'at. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Part of what this midrash that he is quoting here is saying is what I've already said. Being called holy by God means being in special relationship with God, being crowned or chosen as God's people. But I think he's adding something else as well, which is that in order to live a holy life, a good life, you need to have something to think about, something for your brain to churn over. He says it means you have to understand, this is his words, he says you have to understand the matter within the matter, not just take things at face value, but dive deep into trying to understand the workings of the world. There's a level of understanding that we can't get to, chokhmah, wisdom, that only God has. But God has also given us the other two levels to try and do our best to work on the world's problems, which I think is another place that Kedoshim is pushing us to go. If we mean to focus on a well-lived life, well, Kedoshim is telling us it should be a life of justice and trying to fix the world we live in and create a better one. I now want to quote Jeffrey Seller, who was here who was sitting right here on Wednesday night for a book talk on his new memoir, Theater Kid. And for those who might not know who Jeffrey Seller is, he is a Broadway producer. He is the one who is behind Rent, coming to all of our stages in 1996, and then subsequently also Avenue Q, Hamilton, etc. And he said, if you have something in your head and in your heart that is worth saying, make sure you find a way to say it. If you are a writer, make sure you are writing. If you are an artist, find a way to make your art. If you're a musician, find a way to play the music that is unique to you. Find a way to get your voice and your vision into the world. And he said this not just because the world needs what you have to say, and we do. We deeply need creative thinkers and solution finders now more than ever. But he said to do this because of all of the people who did not get to make their projects, whose art and beauty and ideas we did not get to see. Jeffrey made sure to mention all the many brilliant and beautiful souls who died due to AIDS, whose art we did not get to see, both those whose names we know and those whose names we don't know. And I think, in essence, that is what the positioning of Acharei Mot and Kedoshim linked together is trying to tell us. There will always be those whose lives are tragically cut short, whose brilliance and humor don't get to make it out into the world. Nadav and Avihu may have had fantastic and broad-reaching ideas for how to move forward and create a just society. They may have been excellent pastoral caregivers. They may have been talented and bright thinkers with art to share with the world, but we don't know because we did not get to see it. And so Kedoshim comes in to remind us that we have to move forward with living a holy and treasured life, not just for ourselves, but for those who didn't make it as well. Recently at the congregational retreat, I shared that at a women's gathering I was at, someone at the event, and I'll say her name, actually, it's Aviva de Cornfield, who is a producer on This American Life. She shared her 3 areas that make life worth living. and I want to share them now with you. She said, here are the 3 things that make life worth living. 1, small jokes with your friends. 2, having a crush, or flirting, perhaps. And 3, ideas for your brain to chew on. I didn't remember that one at the retreat. I had to ask her. I think that these are all present, which if you look hard enough, which I have tried to do, in Kedoshim. Perhaps God saying Kedoshim to you is God's way of bringing us in on a personal joke. God is saying, we are in it together. Perhaps all the talk about right relationships and wrong relationships is really about reminding us that feeling that spark and that excitement in the other is part of what makes life worth living. And maybe all the attempts at telling us at how to live a just life, a life that emphasizes honesty and fairness, is an attempt at challenging us to think about society on a grand scale, that it is right for us to think deeply, challenge one another, try to come up with big and bold solutions. Maybe not even ones that will always be right, but urging us not to stop the conversation. Continue to let your brains churn and chew things over. I am maybe trying a little hard to break open Kedoshim into something more than it is, but I do think there's something really present about how to live a life with meaning, how to make sure that, as Seneca urged us, we know how to use the life and the time that we have. So let me end with the great patron saint of meaning-making of our generation, Mary Oliver, and read her poem, The Summer Day. She says, "Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" Shabbat Shalom.